Hey everyone, in this video we're going to write a Python container with iofabric. In a previous video we already took a look at how to install Java, Docker, and iofabric on a Linux virtual machine, and in this video we're just going to write the Python code for the container as well as we're going to Docker build it and then publish it to the Docker Hub repository. So to get started, let's just go into terminal. And you're going to want to create a folder for your container or go into wherever you want to build your container. So I'm just going to use the command ls to see all the folders I'm in, and I have this folder called containers where all of my containers are going to be. So let's go into containers, and then again we can ls. Um, when you're done, you should have the files that look like this, but you're not going to obviously yet because you're writing your container now. But we can create these very easily. So what you want to do is you want to type in the command sudo gedit and then whatever you want your Python file to be called, so your .py file. And if there is no file called index.py in this case, what it's going to do is it's going to create that file and it's going to open it up for you and it's going to be blank. And if you already have such a file, then it's just going to pull it up as is in its current state. So it's going to ask you for a password. You just type in the password and then it opens it up. So there's a few different parts to this, and we'll take a look at each of them. So the first is the import statements. We're going to be dealing with JSON objects, particularly the configuration or the config is going to be a JSON object. So we're going to need to import JSON um, as a package. And then we also want to import OS. And what this is it allows us to look at the environment. And specifically, this is going to be used for the container ID, which we're going to pass as an argument in Docker run. So we don't really need any run configurations or anything like that as you would do in Java, but you can just pass this as an argument in Docker run, and then in the program you can use this this os.environ to look at environment variables, and of course it's going to be matched up with this key self name. Okay, cool. So we also have to import two other things, iofabric.client and iofabric.iomessage. And this is pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, to use iofabric, you're going to need to import the appropriate iofabric packages. Cool. So now we have four fields. We've already talked about container ID, which we're going to pass it in the docker run command. And then we also have these config message client and the CTL client, all of which are initialized to none, and all of which will be used, of course, to communicate with iofabric. Cool. So as in Java and as in Node.js as well, the first thing we need to do is to implement a listener. And in this case, we're going to be implementing the functions onConnected, onClosed, onMessage, and onUpdateConfig. So onUpdateConfig, of course, is very simple. So if you have a new config, you just set the config equal to the new config. Then the other thing is that onConnected and onClosed in this example are very simple. You just return. And in your case, onMessage may not necessarily be similar to this, but for this specific example, we're going to be doing a threshold-based message filtering container. And so onMessage basically is going to calculate the new message based off of this method called filter message. And then if it's not equal to none, basically if it's meaningful, we're going to be sending that message using the message client. Okay, cool. So this is our listener implementation. Other than that, we have this filter message method, which of course will not probably be very meaningful to you, but it gives you a few ideas about configurability, and it should also be discussed here for completeness of this container. So we can use this JSON object config and we can calculate, or we can look at the values associated with certain keys using the square brackets as shown. So we calculate a threshold direction, so this is either above or below, and it's a string. And then we can also see inclusive is config of inclusive, and this is going to be either true or false. So is it greater than or equal to or greater than, and vice versa for less than. And then the threshold value is going to be whatever value it is, so just a number. And then this is the crux of the container here. So if the threshold direction is above, then there's two cases within that. It's either inclusive or non-inclusive. And so if the message old's content data is greater than the threshold value or greater than or equal to, depending on inclusivity, you can return the message old. And otherwise you return nothing. There's no such thing as a new message because there is no parameter defined as such. And then the other case, of course, is if the threshold direction is not above but it's below, then you're going to have the exact opposite with less than or equal to or less than, depending on inclusivity. And of course, if you don't have any of these keys in the config, you fail the try and you enter the accept and you return nothing as your message. So the other thing is that well, we need to actually like connect to the client or connect the clients, and we need to get a host. So we instantiate the host using this. And then we also instantiate a listener, which is what we defined, basically our implementation of the listener. And then we basically instantiate the message client and the CTL client, and we connect them both. And in this example, we're not going to be doing anything else, but just for demonstration, I put in this other code too. And basically this shows you how you can continuously send messages. We're not going to be using this for our container because it's not part of the functionality. But what you can do is you can use time.sleep, and you can use the frequency in config to basically say how long you want to sleep, or how long you don't want to be sending messages for, like the gap. And then you can instantiate a message using iofabric.iomessage.capital message, and then you can set the fields of the message, so like the info type, the info format, and especially the content data, which is probably the most meaningful. And then you can send it using the message client, so message client.sendMessage. And this is similar to what's up here, which is in the onMessage, you can send messages using the message client as well. So just another little demonstration of how you can continuously send data, which is of course not part of our container, so I'm just going to delete this part. Okay, cool. So this is our index.py, or whatever you want to call it, our .py file. Other than that, we have this Docker file. So we're going to go sudo gedit Docker file. If you don't have it, it's going to create it for you. And you want to put in exactly this, right? So from Alpine, you want to get the latest. And then you want to run this stuff like the pip install upgrade pip, install the virtual environment, the iofabric, and the WebSocket for Python. Of course, you want to do this as well, and then you want to copy the file into the /src, so we can just specify exactly where it is without really worrying about where it is on your system. And then we can go into that file, and you want to basically run it using Python, and then this is the location of the folder and the file name. So it's going to be index.py for our case, so if you named it something else, you can change it here. And this is what your Docker file is going to be. So we're just going to go ahead and save it and close it. Okay, cool. So the last thing that you want to do to really build your container is you want to go ahead and type in this, which is sudo docker build -t/iotrack/catalog, and then your unique container name. So mine's going to be something like threshold filtering. And then at the end you want to put this dot and not forget it. And so this is going to build a Docker image corresponding to your container. So I've already done this, so I'm not going to do it. You can make sure that it worked by going into this thing called Docker images, and it's going to be the latest one, and it should have the current repository as well as the tag, and it should say created, how long ago it was created, and it has an image ID as well. So let's just go ahead and clear. And after a while, you might also see when you ls, you also have this file called like index.py with this tilde next to it. And so that means that it's successfully built. So other than that, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and create a Docker Hub repository, or a Docker Hub account if you haven't done so yet. So you can contribute to the iotracks repository. And so you could just do that by going to um, hub.docker.com. And then you can create an account using the Docker Hub. So once you already have access to that, you can email iotracks. The email address to contact is on the online tutorial. You can request access to the iotracks developer program, and then you will be able to push to the official repository. And so the way you do that is you go to back into the folder. So let's just make sure we're in the right place. Yes, we are. So you go sudo docker push iotrack/catalog, and then in my case it's going to be what, threshold filtering, but basically whatever your container is called, and then this is going to push it to the official repository. um, and so from there there's only one more step to do, which is to publish it, and that's a pretty easy step actually, so I'm just going to go ahead and show you. So you want to go to um, something like this. The link might not be right the first time, but it should be easy to find. So it should look something like this. Okay, and then what you want to do is um, you want to publish a new element. So this is where you publish your element. So you give it all of this information, and then you can browse for your Docker image, and you can publish your element, and then you'll be able to use it um, both in IO authoring online as well as locally. So that's all there is to writing a Python container. So in the previous video, we had already taken a look at all of the steps for setting up iofabric. In this video, we looked at actually building your container and publishing it to the repository so you can use it. So that's all that there is to the Python. And I hope this was useful for you and that you can get started writing containers in Python. Yep, thank you very much.